Just trying to see if we're up and running here. Appears we are. But hi, everybody. If we're indeed up and rolling here, I kind of wanted to do this for a few different reasons. One was just a test to see if this new software works. There's been some updates in the recording software that we use, so I wanted to see if this works. Secondly, most importantly, how about the Guardians? Guardians, we've been so skeptical of the way that they've played over, gosh, the last several weeks, even before the All-Star break, and rightfully so. We're all sort of disappointed in the fact that they only managed to split their series with Detroit, and we know they had this big series coming up against Philadelphia. We're up against the trade deadline, and we're all thinking there has to be, you're at least hoping for a reason to maybe force the front office to buy in, right? But Philadelphia, you're going to Philadelphia, and I know Cleveland, if you look at the standings, they're right there in terms of the best teams in all of baseball. But do they really feel like they're on a level of Philadelphia coming into this series? I would have said no, at least not the way they've played here the last several weeks. And how about the way they go to Philadelphia and take 2 or 3, scratching and clawing their way to 2 out of 3 against one of baseball's best teams? Now, I know that the wins are sandwiched in between a really bad loss, but it was almost like a loss that you'll just take for the hopes of trying to take the series. So you win the opener 3-1. We talked about over at our Patreon show, Zach and I did, about giving credit to Ben Lively and the way that he threw. I don't have any way of knowing whether or not Ben Lively would be successful in a playoff game. We've all been waiting all year long for Ben Lively to sort of turn into a pumpkin, and underneath the surface, the underlying stats haven't always been something you want to believe in. And yet this dude goes into Philadelphia against a really talented lineup in an environment that could be real crazy, and pitches like that. Dude just shuts down a Philadelphia lineup that is so good. And I wanted to give him so many flowers for being able to go there and do that. And again, I don't know if he would succeed in a playoff atmosphere, a playoff start. I can tell you that just going off of guts doesn't guarantee anything, but he would not lose a playoff start because he was scared, because he'd be pitching nervous, or the moment would be too big for him. The way that Ben Lively pitched in that opener, with pitching with no fear, basically. What does that mean? I don't know. I can't sort it at Fangraphs, but my goodness, that was impressive. Then you have the stinker in the game too, but it was all setting up to hopefully take the finale with Joey Cantillo on the mound, making his major league debut. My gosh, you want to take a guy that has some walk issues, maybe a little bit of home run issues, as Zach pointed out on our recent Patreon show over the past couple of years, and you put them against him against an offense that can do both of those things, that can take the walks, that can also put it out of the park. Tough environment for that kid. And Kyle Schwarber, yes, Kyle Schwarber got him a couple of times. But I will tell you, the way that Vogt managed, the aggressive managing of the bullpen, hats off. Hats off to the way that he managed in this game. Stephen Vogt, and we'll talk about Noel tying up the game. The fact that they needed a swing like that, my goodness, it seems like it's been weeks since they've had a swing like that. When you're knotted up in this game, and Stephen Vogt could just feel it, he can sense it, and he's managing like Terry Francona in the 2016 playoffs. Yeah, go get me Smith. Get me Smith coming out of the bullpen here in the 4th inning, because we're tied now. I smell a chance to go get this game, and so we're going to the bullpen in the 4th inning with one of my big boys. And how about the way that this bullpen pitched? Yeah, I know bullpens can make you look smart, or they can make you look real bad. They can make you look silly. And all the credit in the world is due to Smith, to Sandlin, to Herron, to Gaddis, to Barlow, and then, of course, Clase. But I loved the aggressiveness in which Vogt managed this game. That was spectacular. The fact that he's envisioning what we all are, a series win in Philadelphia. Yeah, it's just 2 out of 3 games on a schedule, but for a team that's sort of teetering on the edge of, do we believe in ourselves? Or what are we doing heading into the trade deadline? It really felt like, God, this series, sort of similar to how disappointing it felt not taking 3 out of 4 against Detroit, for them to then come back in Philly, you knew getting a series like this would just it would do a lot for everyone's confidence and maybe just making people settle down and feel like things aren't starting to spiral out of control. Zach and I have talked about it recently that this is where a manager really earns their money when the team isn't playing well. How do you hold things together? And going for the victory by going to the bullpen that has been a weapon for Cleveland in the fourth inning. I loved it. I absolutely love the move. And yeah, then the rest of the guys got to go out there and execute. But you're going to trust one of baseball's best, if not baseball's best bullpen, even if against a tough team like Philadelphia. But it's better to me than just seeing what happens with Cantillo going up against Schwarber another time, because we had already seen what happened two times earlier in this game. Now, that's in place because Noel, as I said, you've been waiting for a swing like that for how long? For how long have we been waiting for a swing like that from Noel? From anybody, really. And you got it. That's the most important thing. But the timing of it. The timing, because what it had been, like 42 consecutive singles, or I know it wasn't that level, but it seemed like that. Every hit they got was a single or an infield something or other, and maybe some good fortune by Philadelphia not playing good infield defense earlier in the series, especially. But then set it up. That's why you have a guy like Noel. You live with the bad at bats, right? You live with him swinging at pitches in the other batter's box, looking like Javier Baez, because this dude can change the game with one swing of the bat. Is he going to do it enough in his career to justify being a major leaguer? I don't know, but they needed somebody like this for really months, really for the entire season. They kind of envisioned Ramon Laureano being this guy. But he clearly wasn't. Did you see what he did over a couple of days ago in Atlanta? He overran a fly ball, allowed the Mets to win. And then he got in like a scuffle at home plate on was it a bunt or a suicide attempt? Something got everyone really mad. So things not going well for Laureano in Atlanta, kind of like they weren't going well for Cleveland. Cleveland tried Jonathan Rodriguez. It was a struggle for him to even hit a fly ball up here in the major leagues. So then they go to Noel, and we talked about it at the time. It was a great choice to me to go to Noel because we need to know going into next year whether he's worth rostering. Beyond just being worth rostering, he's helped you win some ball games or put you in a position where the offense has been better at times, courtesy of those big swings. And did anybody else notice his little wiggle coming out of the box after he hit that ball? He felt so good about himself, and rightfully so, that he had like a little wiggle coming out. Oh my God, it was great. I loved it. He deserved it. It really fired up the dugout. And so you go from a game that's you're down 3-0. You've had Cantillo put in this position where he's pitching. He's gotten got by Schwarber a couple of times. The offense has been just scuffling to terrible levels here. You're wondering, approaching the trade deadline, are they going to fix the offense? Are they going to focus on pitching? Are they going to do anything at this point? And to go from a game where you have a rookie making his first major league start, you're down 3-0 in the house of Philadelphia, which can get rowdy and out of control quickly, and that swing of the bat by Noel. That there actually aren't that many home runs anymore or big plays that really forced me to be vocal in the moment. Unfortunately, being in the media all these years kind of killed that part of my fandom. I reacted. I made an audible noise upon seeing that by Noel. So he hits the 3-run home run to tie up the game. As we talked about, Vogt being aggressive, I loved that. And it set itself up for Stephen Kwan later in the game, the power hitter, who now has 11 home runs this year, equaling his previous entering the year, his career number. And he's done that all in 1 year. Has chasing home runs here recently led to a little bit of a mini slump in terms of average? I don't know. I think he's been a little bit out of sorts. You can even see it frustrated earlier in the game before the home run. He had one where he popped up into foul territory, and he was just disgusted with himself. Some of the approaches maybe not what he would want, but you will certainly take the big swing in Stephen Kwan entering the year. We didn't think he was going to be that sort of hitter, but he's provided 11 round trippers this year. And to emerge with a 4-3 win, wow, in Philadelphia. I know it's 2 out of 3 in a 162 game schedule. You don't get extra credit for beating the good teams, but it does feel like there's just a little bit of something when you go to Philadelphia. Again, everybody's been a little bit skeptical of this Cleveland team, and you're trying to be in a position where you want to look strong entering Tuesday's deadline. So you can put it all on the front office. If they don't make the move, that's on them, not because of what we did as a team. We gave them every reason to believe in us entering that trade deadline. It just feels like this carries a little bit more weight. And also, by the way, you were without your cleanup hitter, Josh Naylor, who's dealing with things, according to Stephen Vogt, in terms of injury, and they want to get him right, whatever that means. I don't trust anybody this time of year, by the way. I feel like everybody's lying to me about everything. But you didn't have Josh Naylor, regardless of whether he's been good or bad here in this recent stretch. That's still one of your more fearsome bats in the middle of the order. You go to Philadelphia, take 2 or 3, and you didn't have Josh Naylor in any of those games. I know he was available to pinch hit today. I want to give them their flowers today because I think this was an extremely impressive win. So that's all I got. I had a few minutes to hang out, wanted to do a quick live stream, and I wanted to test this new software that we're using with Riverside to see if this works and if people could send in chats. And I was trying to figure out how I can make it show up on the screen. John, I see you here. John says, "We out here." What's up, John? Good to see you. Derpy Entertainment, great win. Still wondering what the plan for the deadline is. Yeah, I am too. I mentioned this in the Patreon show. I can't explain it. I just have had this feeling for the past couple of days, and Zach's kind of laughed at me about this too, by the way. I just had this feeling that they're not only are they trying to get something big done, that they were going to get something big done as far as going out and chasing that ace pitcher. Now, why do I feel that way? Part of it I can't explain. The other part of it is I think this team knows that if you go get a controllable starting pitcher in front of the rotation arm, whether it's Crochet, whether it's Skubal, I know there's been reports here recently that they don't want to part with Skubal. I don't believe anybody this time of year. I think everybody's just posturing and trying to position themselves to get as much as they can. You overwhelm them enough, you can talk anybody pretty much into any trade you want. But it just feels like this team, we know they need pitching for multiple years, right? And go back to 2011, they traded for Ubaldo Jimenez. Why? Well, maybe because they thought they had a chance in 2011, but also because they thought that was a team on the rise. And this is the chance for us to go get what they thought at the time was a front of the rotation arm. He wasn't in 11 and 12. You did end up getting front of the rotation performance in 13, which helped this team get to that wild card berth. But it just feels like this team is in a little bit of a sort of similar position. However, this team is obviously better positioned than the 2011 club in terms of getting to the playoffs and trying to make some noise. This team is an opportunity seeker. They're looking for where can we make a move that we're creating that opportunity for ourselves. And it just has felt like everything sets up for them to cash in some chips here and go get a starter that helps them this year, yes, but then also for next year and hopefully more depending on what starter you're going out there to get. And as I see a guy like Randy Arozarena, who would have been a tremendous fit in this offense. Arozarena, I don't want to sell him up higher than he is. It's not that he's a great superstar MVP player, but he's been very solid for many years in his career. His overall numbers don't look good this year, but recently they have been much better over the last month plus. I think he would have been a great fit. So I'm wondering, for a guy that didn't look like it cost the farm to go get, why would you pass on that? Why would you ultimately not pull the trigger, right? And we know, courtesy of our own Zach here, has told us there was interest there. They were involved in discussions for Arozarena. Why would you not do that? Now, there's two reasons for that. One, you're overvaluing your own prospects, and somehow you feel like what the Rays asked for is not legitimate. There's another side of this coin. What if you have a limited number of resources that you can and are willing to part with, and some of that you maybe would have had to have used in a Arozarena trade would have been needed to be used to go get that starting pitcher. So you have to ask yourself, do we pass on the possible chance, because there's no guarantee even if you're involved in talks for a front of the rotation starter that you're going to go get that. But do you pass on that today and go get a guy in the outfield that you could need, and maybe take that off the board for yourself. But I don't know. It depends on what this front office evaluates the biggest need to be and how far ahead they would put the front of the rotation arm versus a guy that's a controllable, solid outfielder that they would have for a couple of years here. I wonder if it's a case where they're until one of these big starters gets moved, they're not going to part with what could potentially be involved in a trade like that. They don't want to take away from their chances to go get that done. Now, if that is the case, and this is again just me, that I don't have anything to go on other than my gut. If that's the case, that's fine. It's a risk that you're taking here because as you wait, you risk the chance that you don't get that starting pitcher and everybody else that could have helped your offense or maybe even helped your starting pitching staff. If like a guy like Zach Eflin or could have helped this team, you pass on him because maybe you're envisioning going to get a more impactful front of the rotation arm. I don't know. There's just a lot at play here. And I'm willing because I've said the only goal here is to be better when the pencils are down. And to me, still got a chance to do that. Don't know if they're going to. And I will reserve the right to rip them until the pencils are down. You got to be better, though. By the time that Tuesday deadline rolls around, you've got to be better. So we'll see. Zach has told me that feeling I have in terms of going and chasing the front of the rotation arm is just gas. That actually might be the case. Let's see. Gallig says, how much longer until the trade happens? My body is ready. Yeah, I think all of us are. John says, would love if Junk could lock in a bit more on the swings and misses so we could put him in the Schwarber leadoff role. Nice. That would be cool. Don't know if I don't think Schwarber is a unique animal in that you have a guy that takes as many walks as he does and can change the game as he was trying to today with one swing of the bat. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of guys like Schwarber. But sure, I mean, I'm all for it. Absolutely. Michael says, way to go. Wait, you're giving me the credit, Michael? Way to go, TJ. Nice win. I'll take it. I'll take it. Well, thanks for hanging out. I was trying to work through this software so I can figure out how to get some of your comments up on the screen, but for some reason, I can't quite figure out how to do it. But the deadline is coming up, and Zach is busy in the post game right now. He's busy. He's got to catch a flight coming up, and he's got to fly home from Philadelphia back to Cleveland, and then tomorrow morning he's driving to Detroit. So he's a little bit busy. I'm going to try to flag him down. We'll see what we can do in terms of an actual full show. But I wanted to have this potential opening for us to maybe do a live stream if something happens, and that would be a good time to do a little bit of a trial run here to see if I can get this working. But I can't figure out the comments thing, which is making me a little bit upset. But other than that, if you have any questions, pop them into the chat, and we can talk through them. But again, thanks for hanging. I just wanted to hang out, and I had some thoughts just running around in my head, and sometimes just doing this is fun. So I thought I'd hang out, and maybe you guys are feeling the good vibes, like I was post game here. Again, taking 2 out of 3 against Philadelphia. All the things that are on the table here, we're all a little bit skeptical about the way Cleveland has played here lately, right? This is the time of year when you want to feel strong entering that deadline day, not giving the front office any reason to run away from a trade. No, you want to give them every reason to push the chips in. And I think going into baseball's best, their yard, and taking 2 out of 3, I know the middle game was bad. I know it was. But in letting that play out the way that it did, it sort of puts you in a position to be aggressive, like Vogt was today with this bullpen. My goodness. Smith, Sandlin, Herron, Gaddis, Barlow, and Clase. Could you have asked for anything more from that group? Not just today, but all year long. And so the bullpen has been a weapon. I give Vogt credit for seeing that as a weapon and saying, yeah, I'm going to trust that weapon today. And I'm not going to let Cantillo go through the lineup again. I'm not going to let him face Schwarber again. We just managed to tie a game that we're down 3-0 initially, and maybe it's already shaping up to be great. Another long weekend and trying to say, well, it was Philadelphia. We went into Philadelphia. We took one of those games, so it wasn't worst case scenario. No, You fought back. Noel hits the 3-run home run. And then in the 4th inning with runners on base, the vote says, we're going for that win. We're going to try to keep it right there because this means a lot in terms of the schedule, yes, but also in terms of where we're at right now and trying to get those vibes back high. Does that matter in baseball when it comes down to any sort of momentum? No, because momentum in baseball doesn't exist. It never exists. It only manages to exist as long as your starting pitcher continues to give you good innings, really. But it just felt like this series carried some extra weight. So I loved the I tweeted, I adored the aggressiveness today from Vogt. I thought that was absolutely beautiful. Let's dip into, let's see what else we got here. We need Andrew Miller level trade to take the team all the way. Who would you trade for if you were the GM? What's left out there? I mean, I already said it. I had mentioned Jesse Winker, and then 5 minutes later, the Mets traded for him, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? You can't give me like 5 minutes of the show being live before you take away one of the guys that I talked about. And I had seen some say, oh, thank God we didn't get Jesse Winker. I think I'm not selling him for more than he is. He's this year has been a very good bat. He's what does this team need? Some help against right-handed pitching, some help against all-handed pitching, but maybe the role that Will Benson is supposed to be playing, Will Brennan is supposed to be, or Will Benson a couple of years ago, Will Brennan is supposed to be playing, that could have been filled by Jesse Winker, much, much better, more established version who has been good and getting back to what he did in Cincinnati, but the Mets traded for him. You know, Zach's been trying to talk me into Brandon Lau. The fact that the Guardians and the Rays have already been talking, I think that's significant. Not that it guarantees anything getting done, but what I mean, these discussions have been happening for a long time already, yes, and it's not that the Rays are unfamiliar with the Guardian system already, but they've already been doing their due diligence and their scouting of everybody in the Guardians minor leagues. And so the fact that they still have guys like Lau or Yandy Diaz potentially available, I mean, that to me at least tells me that the conversations are taking place and there's some familiarity between these two organizations. It's just a linking that I would keep an eye on. For me, I still want to bat. I had seen some saying, hey, let's approach the White Sox and just swing for the fences, try to find some way to get Luis Robert and Garrett Crochet in the same trade and just go for it. And is there risk involved in a deal like that? Yes, considering what you need to give up. But I don't know about you guys. I just want to have some fun, and I want to see a team positioned to try to win a championship. I'm getting old enough that I can now say, in my lifetime, I want to see that. But I think Crochet is a very interesting piece because he would seem to me like a guy that the front office would just envision being a great get. Because you hold him for multiple years. There's already reports out there that he wants an extension, that he's eager for an extension, because he wants the security. If he's being asked to pitch deep into the playoffs, which would be if you're trading for him, I know there's been talk about, well, maybe he would settle into a bullpen role, or maybe he would be a guy that just goes through the rotation or goes through the lineup one time because he was previously a reliever and he's never pitched this deep in the season as a professional before. And so you want to protect that arm to some degree, and I think he wants to protect his own arm. You go to a new team, you don't know if you're going to be treated like CC Sabathia, being asked to pitch every 3 days. And so he wants some security there and saying, I would want an extension if I'm going to a new team, or else I'm not going to pitch in the playoffs. Do I believe that entirely? No. I think he's exercising some right to just hold some sense of his fate in his own hands. I don't hate him for that. Do what you feel like you got to do to maybe hold on to some of that, because as a player, you really hold no leverage without any sort of trade protections, and he clearly doesn't have any. So I'm fine with that. But when you got to a new team, you're in a winning environment. Let's say you're getting into August and September with this new team, and you're surrounded by really good players. Do I really think he's going to sit out? Do I really think he's going to say, nah, we're good. I helped you for a month and a half here, but I'm good. No, I really don't think Crochet is going to do that. To me, It kind of feels like that similar mold to Obaldo. To get a talent like that, cash in some chips now. I I I think Crochet is interesting, but we'll see where the front office goes. Oh boy, let's see. Dan, which do you think is the most likely starting pitcher, relief pitcher, or hitter? What do I think is the most likely? I think they're gonna address the starting pitching, but I just don't know to what level. Maybe it's a Fetty, maybe it's just a guy that is a rental at the end of the year. I think they bring in another arm of some sort there. I don't know how you can go the rest of this year without addressing that. Because goodness, guys, we all love Carlos Carrasco. How do you give Carlos Carrasco any more innings? Someone joked in our Discord that, hey, well, the saving grace here in the middle game against Philly is that this is the last Carlos Carrasco start. And someone else retorted, it feels like we're on the 6th consecutive last Carrasco start at this point. It would be nice to not have to count on him to any degree for the rest of the year. But you got to replace him with something. And so maybe it's some level of starting pitcher, but I don't know how you emerge from this deadline giving this team a true chance to win without addressing both at least one pitcher and a hitter to some degree, even if it's not a guy that you control for multiple years. God, it feels like you need to do something to address both the lineup and the rotation. They're both critical. So everyone always asks which is more important, and I feel like the girl in the commercial with the tacos, and she says, "Why not both?" And everybody lifts her up on the shoulders and celebrate. That's me. Why not all of them? Let's see here. Brent Rooker. Yeah, Brent Rooker. Sure. Oakland keeps saying that they're not wanting to trade Rooker. That seems silly to me. Why? Who do you have to impress the next several years? Are you really going to... I know you could say there will be more teams when you get to the offseason. That's true. But I can come back and say, well, he's going to be less valuable because that's one less playoff run that I'll have him for because you didn't trade him before the end of 24. But if you trade him now in a position where there are not as... How many hitters are as good as Rooker has been this year available on the market right now? And so you control the market. You basically say, give me whatever I want out of your farm system. I again, everything feels like posturing at this point, and just knock the socks off for Rooker if you're going to come after him. That would be what I would be saying publicly, but I wouldn't understand why he wouldn't be available. That just seems silly. It just seems silly. Let's see here. Do you think the Benson and Jones debacle is leading to being slow to move on from underperforming prospects? I mean, they said this spring that they feel like they need to be more patient. This is a topic we could go on for this for hours, but it's like, because Cleveland's always looking for the answer in their position player side of things. They're always looking for the right fielder, not just a piece or a good bench batter. They're always looking for the answer. But they have a lot of guys that are maybe good enough to be that, but they need opportunity. And so what often ends up happening is if they don't get the immediate answer or they're not sure that they're going to be the guy, they're always caught up in having these roster conundrums where they have all these different guys they want to get through, and then they have to end up shipping some of them off. And you end up moving on from guys that are maybe not great players, or maybe not the answer, but they are players that could help you win. For a long time, even for parts of this year, I wondered if Arias was going to be that next guy. Now I'm not so sure. I'm not sure he's going to be that guy. But I do think that I agree with you that there's been some sense here of patience and really wanting to make sure they give people an opportunity here before they move on. And then to their credit, in other areas, they've been aggressive and have tried calling up Noel. I don't think any of us really thought that Noel is going to be on the chessboard this year, but because Laureano didn't perform, because they went to Rodriguez, but he wasn't giving them anything in that spot either. So let's go to Noel because he's further along in his option timeline. And by the time next year arrives, he's not going to have any more options. You need to know whether or not he's worth rostering. So he's further along than Rodriguez. And by the way, clearly performing better now. So kind of killing two birds with the one stone. Can we kidnap one of Detroit's pitchers while we're there? We can't publicly say that, John. I don't condone that in any way. Let's see. Not only would Rooker be legit, but their leadoff batter Butler would be awesome. Comes from R. Jones. Miller Mania 2108 out of 10. What's the chance the Guards make a trade? Make a trade? I mean, that's hanging the bar pretty low. A couple of days ago, we did going back through and looking at past trades from 2011 onward. And what I realized is, I mean, here's the list here. The only year where they didn't make a trade, like a single trade leading up to the deadline, was 2022. Every other year, they have made a trade or multiple trades. So to answer your question, I think it's a 10 out of 10 that they make a trade, because there's only been 1 year since 2011 where they didn't make a trade. So I think they will make a trade. An impactful trade? I don't know. I mean, I think clearly we all believe they need to. I'll say it's a chance or a trade of some significance. I'll say that's a 5 out of 10, 50-50 shot. A name we haven't seen a lot, but maybe someone like Blake Snell, who, I've seen in Jello Dart coming in with that comment. I have seen, what was it, like a half a dozen teams are now calling in on Snell, who has really locked it in here recently. San Francisco not looking like a playoff team, according to Jello Dart. Sure, but apparently everybody is on Snell the last several days. Smokey Gator, do you think being in the same division plays a role in acquiring Crochet? I mean, it could. It absolutely could, because there's a lot there. And this is not a rental. This is someone that you're going to see for multiple years on both sides, because, yes, the White Sox would be seeing Crochet, but because of where they're at, do they really care if they see Crochet for the next several years in the Central? Do they think they're going to win the Central in the next several years? Probably not. So to me, the bigger thing is, do the Guardians want to see the prospects that they would give up in a trade like that, or even young position players? Those are guys that could be either playing the role of spoiler to you for the next several years, or if they're really good, you might be seeing them in the division for 6 or 7 years, or maybe more. It wouldn't impact things for me. I think it's silly to just shut down an in-division trade. If you think that's the best fit for both sides, then make the deal. But I mean, it could. I think it might play more of a factor for owners. Sometimes owners make a bigger deal about that than the actual GMs. Let's see, Joshua. I know we will never know, but man, I would love to know the truth behind all the non-moves the last few years. In what way? In what way? I mean, 2022, it's not surprising, because they were a team that I certainly didn't think they were going to accomplish in 2022 what they did at the end of the year, and they caught so much fire in August and then clearly September. If they would have known that was coming, then yes, they would have pushed more chips in, I think, or pushed any chips in. 21, they weren't doing it. They weren't going anywhere in 21, 23. They had decided to move on, make that roster transition, and it made sense to me in 23. In 2020, they completely changed up the team by making the Clevenger trade and bringing in Naylor, bringing in Quantrill, and finally seeing the last piece of that in Cantillo today. So I think the thing with what you're thinking, none of the bigger moves since really going back to 2018, the last time. No, I guess you can make a case for 19 too, because that's when they brought in Puig and Reyes and shifted the roster up that way too, with Bauer going out. But the last time they really made that all-in trade, trading a prospect, was 2018, going back to Brad Hand. But the problem is, this team is always off to slow starts every single year. And you always approach the deadline like a few games above 500 and sort of hanging around, but they haven't positioned themselves as being a juggernaut of any kind. That's what makes this year's deadline so different, because they did get off to a great start. They were fantastic in the first few months, and really beyond that more. And I know they've really scuffled and and stubbed their toes here over the last several weeks, outside of today in Philadelphia, of course, taking 2 out of 3 there, they're not usually in this position. They're not ever fighting to be the best team in the American League. It's pretty rare. So I guess that's why it felt like all bets were off going into this year, not looking at what they've done in the past several years, because every year is a little bit different. Teams that are just not doing a lot to instill confidence that they're going to go anywhere. I don't know. That would sort of change the way that I would look at the deadline as a front office this year compared to previous years. Let's see here. R. Jones, the Yankees picking up Jazz was a great pickup for those clowns. God, I can't wait to see that. I have no idea. Jazz is a fun player, but like the fun to actual production ratio is, I don't know where that, can I find that on Savant somewhere, on Baseball Savant? I mean, he's a good player, certainly a good player. And I think that skill set in Yankee Stadium could be really fun. It could be dangerous for opposing teams. It could blow up magnificently as far as us watching it from afar, like TNT, like dynamite, and just blow up in their faces. Or it could turn out to be a great pickup. I think that's a fun fit. Nothing else. It's a really fun fit. Let's see here. Scott says trade Josh Naylor. All in on Jhonkensy Noel. Okay, well, first you have to find Naylor. Naylor's been out for 3 games. Dealing with things. Trying to get him healthy for the stretch run. I mean, I believe that he's dealing with something, considering we haven't seen the same hitter for quite some time. Joshua says, talking about the trades in reference to all the consolidating they could have done. Yes, absolutely. We have been talking about it for years at this point. Why no consolidation and looking for taking multiple prospects that maybe even you liked and you believed in and getting turning that into a proven something, whether it's in the rotation or hitter or outfielder that they've needed for several years. Yes. And I know it puts them in an uncomfortable spot because you have to make a stance there. And Cleveland hates making any sort of stance without more information. We want more information, and I get it. More information, you make a more informed decision, but everybody else is able to watch that stuff too. I mean, go back 5 years ago, look at what the top prospects were in Cleveland's system, and then think, when we were talking about Valera and Rocchio being these can't-miss prospects, it really looked like they were on their way to being that. And now, how many trades would you be okay with Valera and Rocchio being involved? Probably a lot of them. I feel like over the years, I've gone from prospect hoarder to just trade them. Just trade them. If you're getting, okay, let me preface this with, especially if you're making a deal with the Rays. If you're trading for some of the best players on the market, then I am absolutely okay with trading some top prospects. Because it might come back to bite you someday. Maybe those top prospects go on to have all-star careers. Maybe. But if you get a good player out of it, if you get what you wanted out of your end of the deal, yeah, maybe it hurts, but it's going to hurt a lot less compared to if you give up a young catcher to the Astros and you get back Miles Straw and that doesn't work out. Well, you swung for a Miles Straw and that didn't work out. That hurts a lot. Or when you trade a random swap for a pitcher with the Rays and you end up giving them eventually their top prospect, that hurts. To me, it hurts a lot less if you're giving up top prospects, but you're getting back Andrew Miller. That hurt in the moment too, and it felt like a lot to give up for an Andrew Miller. But God, even if Frazier or Sheffield or some of those relievers in that deal had stayed healthy, wouldn't we all be okay with that, considering what Andrew Miller gave them in 2016? I am so far now closer to the just trade the prospects for the proven really good players. And is it going to pay off? We have no guarantee of that. Only one team wins the World Series every single year. Let's see here. What else we got here? Zach texted me. Sorry, I can't look at that right now, Zach. Aaron says, free Yandy. Come home, Yandy Diaz. I mean, it'd be a good fit, sure. Ryan says, Noel has been fun to watch, and I hope he keeps it up, but he's a time bomb. Will end up turning into Oscar Gonzalez 2.0. Not someone you can count on for the future. Would be crazy to deal Naylor. I would not be dealing Naylor right now. Noel and Oscar Gonzalez, that's an interesting thought experiment. Oscar Gonzalez, Noel's power is legitimate. That is real big league power. That's not even just minor league power like Jeff Manto power. We're talking about a guy that if you gave him the at-bats, he would hit big league home runs. It's just you don't know if he would do it enough to warrant being up here all the time. For Oscar Gonzalez, you just looked at him and he was just trying to do. It was a guy that would swing at pitches in, he would swing at pitches out. It's like he could never settle into what he wanted to be. With Noel, I know what he wants to do. He wants to smash homers. I understand what you're saying. The outcomes could be similar, but they are different players. And that I know what John Kensey Noel wants to get up there and do. I know what he wants to do. For Oscar Gonzalez, is like he wanted to be a power hitter, but he also wanted to be an average hitter. He wanted to do everything. And unless you're just graced with the best ability that there could be, you're probably not going to be able to do anything. You got to pick what am I going to excel at. We'll see if Noel can be good enough in the power department to make up for the shortcomings elsewhere. Let's see here. Jim says, I guess trading Kwan would have been okay 3 years ago then. I mean, you're saying it like a gotcha, but what would have been? You got to give me another name. You got to give, who would it have been for? Would have trading Kwan for a middle of the road outfielder been okay? No, but if you would have positioned him and something else, and you would have gotten back a star level player, and for every one prospect that you could point out to, and I'm not saying trade them all just for doing it. I'm zero in on guys that are going to be impactful players that are going to help you win because they have been that in a position certainly like this year. But for every one Kwan that pans out, how many don't? Yes, you are going to look foolish occasionally in trading top prospects. I'm not saying do it all the time. A team like Cleveland can't live that way all the time. But when the time calls for it, like this year, yeah, I'm saying trade some of the prospects here, or trade multiple prospects here for the guy the guy that's going to help you get closer to winning a championship, maybe this year and for multiple years. To be in a position they are. Let's see, where are we at here in the standings? I was updating today. I know the Twins won. The Royals ended up losing, or they were losing at the time when I looked at it. Still playing, I think, against the Cubs. But Cleveland is 596 winning percentage, 62-42. So 104 games into the schedule to have a 596 winning percentage, to be this deep into the schedule. It's tough to be here. It's tough to be nearly at a 600 winning percentage over 100 games into the season. Take advantage of that. No, you don't just trade every prospect just to trade them, but if you're going to consolidate them into getting a star level player or one of the best names available, yeah, let's have that conversation. A few more, maybe. Let's see. More Naylor or more Noel conversation. Joshua, I think Noel can stick, but you are looking at 30 plus home runs a year and 200 plus Ks. Yeah, maybe. That's about all I see. All right, well, I'm going to end the stream here. I didn't anticipate. How long 43 minutes? How did we even do that? Just get rolling. I don't even know what I said today. I apologize. I probably didn't make much sense of anything. I wasn't even planning to do this. It was more just a test to see if this would work today, and I was going to experiment with some of the chats. But unfortunately, I couldn't get the chats to work. But it was fun just kind of hanging out. And like I said, I just wanted to give everyone a place to kind of react and have some fun. I mean, you should have some good vibes after today, taking 2 or 3 against a team like Philly. And was it pretty? No. But scratching and clawing to series wins like this over Philly, that's impressive. And doing it behind a bullpen that has been there for you all season long, and I would say manipulated beautifully by Vogt, but he just handed the ball to the weapon. These guys have been weapons for me all season long. I'm going to trust them. And he did that today. So credit to Vogt in the fourth inning, going to Smith there. I love that aggressiveness, going for the victory there after you just tied things up 3-3. Noel, big swing today. That's big. Cantillo, we barely talked about, but you saw a little bit of everything with Cantillo, right? Some of the swing and miss, some of the strikeouts, some of the walks, some of the being plagued by home runs, but both of those came from a guy that's capable of hitting home runs off of anybody in Kyle Schwarber. We saw some of the good, some of the bad. I'm eager to see what becomes of Cantillo now over the next several weeks, when you don't have to put him in Philadelphia against one of baseball's best offenses. Tough spot to make a debut. And hey, to his credit, the walls didn't come completely tumbling down. It could have been much, much worse throughout some of the early innings, and he was able to sort of get by until you got to that bullpen, and of course the big swing by Noel and the big swing by Kwan. Good vibes today. Good vibes. As far as the next show goes, the actual show with Zach being here with me, I don't know. As I mentioned, Zach is going to be traveling back to Cleveland tonight from Philadelphia, and then he's going to be back on the road early tomorrow morning as he's driving to Detroit. As news happens, as moves happen, maybe I'll pop on here with a live stream, but we'll be all over it. Don't worry about that. And of course, patreon.com/SelbyIsGodcast, where we'll come in after the deadline and we'll just kind of clean it up and see where we're at and see where this team's going. But a lot of fun today. Thanks for hanging out today in the stream, and thanks for being here. Shout out to everybody here, and have a good rest of your Sunday night, everybody. See ya.